If you're working out, you're trying to get some kind of result from your workout. And in this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we're going to share with you exactly how to go about doing that. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
Today, we're discussing the idea of results. Results are something that everybody across the board who's working out is trying to get. I mean, maybe not everybody. Maybe there are people who just like working out for the sake of using their time doing something, but they're not actually like trying to get stronger or trying to build muscle or trying to lose weight or trying to get more physically fit or trying to get better condition or trying to do anything with their workouts aside from just use some time. But if that's you, you can skip this episode. Everybody else who's actually trying to get some kind of result from their workout, whether it's performance related, function related, health related, or whatever, listen up, because there's only 3 things you need to do and you need to understand in order to get those results. And that's exactly what I want to share with you today. But I want to let you know, if you want to start taking action on what we're talking about, that's exactly what we can help you do at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Okay, so when it comes to results from your workouts, there are a whole variety of results that you could be going after, but regardless of what the results are that you're wanting, there's only 3 steps you need to follow. Unfortunately, most people get caught up in the mystification of how to go about getting results, or they buy into the magic of the idea of, oh, it's this special exercise or this special type of workout or whatever it is that's going to get me the results. When the truth of the matter is, it really just comes down to 3 simple things. That's what we're sharing with you today.
You're right, Charlie, but I do want to back up because you said if you're not exercising to get results, then maybe skip this episode. Because you know what? So many people exercise because they think they should, and then years go by and they keep exercising, and then they wonder why they haven't gotten results. So
Great
even when
point.
you're not like, oh, I want to improve my strength, or I want to train to tour Europe, or I want to, you know what I'm saying? Like even if you're not results focused, if years go by and let's say you get to 50 years old or 70 years old and you're like, well, I've been exercising this whole time. Why am I losing strength? Or I've been exercising this whole time. Why are my knees so weak? Or whatever it is, you're missing one of these steps. Usually it's going to be very clear once we start talking about it, which step you're missing. But usually every single time you are missing one of these steps. So if you move your body, if you exercise, whether you think you are going after a certain outcome or not, you should listen to this, because at one point you're going to look back on your exercise if you weren't kind of goal oriented, right? Maybe you're just like, I just like to show up to tennis 3 times a week. But then 5 years later, you're wondering, well, why isn't my endurance good? Why isn't this good, right? This episode is for you so that you can know, well, these are the 3 steps. These are the 3, variables in the concoction of how you get changes in your body when it comes to exercise. And so if you're not seeing changes, then one of these things is missing, or a couple of these things are missing.
Exactly. Now, if you're listening right now, you're like, oh, I've heard what you're saying before. I mean, it's good. Look, just slow down for a second, okay? Listen to this, because yes, you may have heard us say this before, and this will be a nice reminder for you, because so often we get caught up in overcomplicating things with our workouts of like exactly how many sets and reps should I do and exactly what specific exercises I should do. Just stop overcomplicating it. Just listen to what we're going to talk about today and have that be a nice reminder of like, oh yeah, these are the simple things that I need to get back to. This is actually how I get results. So the first thing that you must do without question, if you're wanting to get results from your exercise, is you must challenge your muscles. Step 1, hands down across the board, is you must challenge your muscles. Now, there are a lot of actually nuances that go into this. And because what often ends up happening is you think, well, I'm doing the exercise, that means I'm challenging my muscles. Truth of the matter is, most people, when they do an exercise, are looking for ways to make the exercise the least challenging that it can be. Meaning, your body, knowingly or not, is not really wanting you to challenge it as much as you may be intending to challenge it. That's why when you do a biceps curl and you think, oh yeah, my form is perfect, and then all of a sudden like your elbows start creeping forward to try to make it your body. That's your body's way of trying to make it less challenging for your muscles. You might be doing, a leg exercise, and all of a sudden you're noticing that you're shifting through your trunk or whatever. It's like that's your body's way of trying to make it less challenging for your muscles. Or you may be starting to fatigue, and all of a sudden you're starting to move the weight faster because instead of focusing on challenging your muscles, you're focused on moving the weight up and down. But this first piece is so critical because if you don't challenge your muscles, then you're going to fall into the exact scenario that Julie just laid out, where you may be going through the motions of exercising 2, 3, 4 days a week for 10, 20, 30 years. And you look back and you're like, why haven't I gotten any results? Because you have gone through the motions of going to the gym, going to the class, checking it off your list for the day, but you have skipped the most important step, which is you're there to challenge your muscles.
That's right. And this is the number one top miss thing. It's because, we have like different logos or slogans in our industry of like, just do it. Getting started is the hardest part. And it's like, okay, well, once you get moving, it does actually have to be challenging. Like it has to be really actually pretty darn difficult for it to change your body. A lot of people are not exercising at a level to create enough challenge for their muscles. Maybe it's you're not picking up enough weight, right? Because 5 pounds for dumbbells is emotionally difficult for you, right? But if it's physically not difficult, right?
Excuse me.
Then you're not going to be getting the changes. Or Charlie brought up a whole bunch of different stuff like changing how your body's moving. Like maybe you're changing your form to get yourself out of the challenge, or maybe you're changing your speed to get out of the challenge. Maybe you're changing your focus to get out of the challenge. But either way, the number one thing that you have to do to get your body to change, and it's also the number one thing that people tend to miss, is making it difficult, making it challenging, actually challenging, physically challenging your body. And we know this to be true because even here in our studio, when we are training someone, when we ask them, okay, we're doing this exercise, how does it feel? Is it easy, medium, or hard? They might say hard. And so that means their perception is hard, right? But literally we could still go up 20 or 30 pounds. So that means you're like 20 or 30 pounds off of what's actually really challenging, because perception of challenge is also relative to what you're used to. So you're going to notice that, like, if you're like, oh yeah, you're right, I do just go through the motions, maybe I'm going to start adding this challenge thing. You're going to notice it's literally like it takes a muscle to be able to handle a challenge, right? It takes practice to be able to like even emotionally handle a challenge. Your body being under force, being under difficulty. So check yourself here. Make sure you are actually challenging your body when you exercise.
Yeah, Jolie, it's interesting you bring up the idea of, when clients are first starting out, because I think a lot of us have had this similar experience, not even with exercise, but say like with school, okay?
Yes.
And so remember, if you can remember back to like your first semester of, call it like your freshman year of college, and you go and you're like, okay, like high school, I got, like I figured out, the workload for high school and everything like that. I got that. And then first semester freshman year, it's like you get punched in the mouth of like, oh my gosh, this is way harder than I was expecting. And then by the second semester, it doesn't feel as hard. And was it because like you got way smarter during the first semester? You probably got like marginally smarter, but you got a new definition of hard. You got a new definition of like, oh, this is actually what I am capable of. And so often, part of the reason why we are not challenging ourselves as much as we actually can and as much as it would actually be appropriate for our body is because of how we are defining hard for ourselves. Like it may be harder than you're used to, but it doesn't mean it's actually near your upper capacity for what your body can tolerate. And unless you are challenging yourself near your upper capacity of what your body can tolerate, then you are going to be just under challenging your muscles, with every single workout. And that's not what we're trying to do. one of the most common phrases that I say to clients when we're first starting, and I usually only have to say this once, and then they get the picture, is that we'll do an exercise and be like, wow, that was really hard. I'm like, yeah, we're trying to get something done. And then they're like, oh, okay, I guess that's the standard now. That's the standard of what an exercise is going to feel like. It's going to feel hard like that. It's going to feel challenging like that. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong. In fact, that means that we're going in the right direction because that's what is required in order to get results, is you first must be challenging your muscles.
Yeah, I love all that, Charlie. And it's totally right. It's like when you're cruising through life and things are easy, you know that like you're kind of just vibing right now, right? But every time you start pushing any part of your life, right? Your physical health, maybe you're trying to push for your finances or that next level in your job or your next level in your relationship or whatever it is, it feels really hard, right? And it doesn't mean it's not worth it. It actually just means things are changing. And when we exercise, we hope that your body is changing. And actually people get really disappointed when they're cruising along in their exercise because us as humans, we love that part, right? Where we're like, oh yeah, I could just show up, not a problem. But then it's disappointing on the other end when it's like, wow, all this time that I've been just enjoying the comfort of I like what I do when I exercise has not led me to the results that I was hoping to get. So the number one thing is make sure that you are challenging your body when you exercise. The second thing is that you gotta make sure that you are recovering from this challenge. Now, some people have the issue of they just don't show up to exercise enough. So they're not even having to think about recovery because they exercise every once a week and, 6 days is plenty of time to recover. But if you're actually exercising in a way to change your body, it has to be more frequent than once a week or once a month or whatever it is. So we have to be recovering from our exercise. So that means that we're getting enough rest and specifically active recovery that's allowing your body and your muscles to heal and your nervous system to be in that ready state again for a new challenge. So the second thing is making sure you are recovering from the challenge of your exercise.
Exactly. And why this is so important is because if you hear step number one, you're like, okay, most important is a challenge. So tomorrow I'm going to max out every single thing that I do. And then the next day you're just toasted. You're like, I can't get off the couch. Like my body, my nervous system is shot. My joints are shot. My muscles are shot. I feel like I'm getting ill. So, okay, like you're not really able to recover from that challenge fast enough to then go to step number 3. So yes, you need to make sure you are challenging your muscles, but you also have to make sure that that challenge is recoverable and recoverable fast enough to then get to step number 3. Because like you were saying, Julie, a lot of times we go to the gym and we're either not challenging ourselves enough, and then, our frequency isn't that high, so like the recovery part just totally takes care of itself, or we are going to the gym, we are blasting ourselves, and then, if, the working out in our 40s the way we did in our early 20s, and then we're wondering why our shoulders hurt and our knees hurt and, our back hurts and everything like that. Well, because yes, you're doing the challenge piece, but you're not getting the recovery piece down. Now, this can mean that you are actively seeking out recovery modalities. That's what we can help a lot of people with using muscle activation techniques. Maybe you have your own thing that you do to help your body recover. But it can also mean just simply that, like, however you're challenging yourself, you are able to set yourself up to come back and do that challenge again because your body has recovered fast enough and thoroughly enough that you're not needing to take days and weeks off away from your workouts because of injuries or issues that have occurred.
You know what? I have so many clients in their 50s and 60s that are returning to exercise because something in the way that they used to do it's not working now, so they need new guidance. But we start exercising, and to my visual, when I'm watching them, I'm like, wow, that was a difficult challenge for them. And then at the end, they're like, yeah, it's really difficult to change my brain about what is a challenging workout. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is that many people that have been in the gym, especially in their 20s and 30s, the label of a difficult workout is like a full body thrash. Like they need to have 5 sweat towels. They need to be beet red in the face. They need to be, their heart rate through the roof. Their whole body needs to be shaking. And what's so tough about that is that your entire body and nervous system now has to recover from that. And so one of the really cool ways to help recover from a challenge and be able to do number 3, which is going to be talking about frequency, but is to like strategically plan out your workouts where you're like, okay, some days I work biceps, but not every day. Some days I work core, but not every day. Some days I work this motion, but not every day, right? And so some motions you challenge, and then other days those motions get to rest. And so that's a really cool way to start working on recovery just from like a programming perspective. But then also, of course, we're going to bring this up, adding in something like muscle activation techniques just to get the readiness level of your body up so that more often you're showing up to your exercise like ready to go. Muscles are turned on and you're feeling good.
Exactly. So that's step number 2, is make sure that you are able to recover from the challenge. And, if you want, actively seeking out different recovery opportunities and methodologies to help you, and modalities to help you with that recovery process. Step number 3 is once you've challenged and once you've recovered, you have to repeat the challenge. Look, one workout is not going to be enough to get you any kind of lasting results. It can start to initiate the change, but it's not going to be anything that will help the change stay. So you got to string together some workouts. You have to be able to repeat the challenge. Okay, I remember growing up, I'd play pickup basketball on Sundays and Wednesdays. And like once a month, there'd be a guy that would show up. And he would come in and he would play once a month. And then that'd be that. And then the next month he would come in and he would play once a month. And he always stayed kind of at the same physical conditioning level. He never got into better shape. And so, if you're playing once a month, that's not going to be enough to get you into any kind of like really decent physical condition. And so he had the challenge part where for an hour and a half, he'd be running up and down. And then he had the recovery part where he would take enough time off to, allow his body to get back to baseline. But he didn't have the repeat part. And so because of that, like he never saw results from a like, oh yeah, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting more physically fit, I'm getting into better shape, anything like that. And so this repeating of the challenge, this is where, if there's any kind of magic with the whole thing, this is where the magic starts to become cumulative, because yeah, we got the challenge and you got the recovery, but you got to be able to repeat the whole process, repeat that challenge, repeat that recovery, and keep going on and on and on in order to get results, in order to build results, in order to keep results.
Charlie, the repeat is so important. I think a lot of people forget that, like, hey, a big part of exercise is repeating it. Like sometimes I think people get really caught up in like, I need like a fresh workout, muscle confusion. I need to do something like new, but actually your body thrives on that repetition. It cannot change unless it has a repeated exposure to the same stress so that it knows, oh, I should adapt to this stress. Oh, we keep challenging my hips. Okay, let's get them stronger. Oh, we keep challenging my knee muscles. Great, let's get them stronger. So that repeat is just so critical. So again, remember, first you got to actually challenge your muscles. If you are just showing up, checking the box, doing something that you find fun, that's great, but it's not challenging. You got to make sure you add the challenge. That's step number 1. Number 2, you got to recover from this challenge. You can't be showing up to workouts and just depleting your body, right? The whole goal of a workout is like, do this taxing thing to progress your body, right? And number 3 is you have to repeat that challenge. Once you've challenged it, once you've recovered it, you got to repeat it. And so if you are not noticing results, or you look back on your exercise and you feel like you aren't seeing results, one or more of these 3 things are definitely missing. So what are some techniques to make sure that these 3 things get done? Because it is straightforward, but also there is some strategy that can be done. The number 1 thing that we recommend everyone do is get on the table and get some muscle activation techniques. The number 1 thing that we see people not challenging their bodies because of this, not recovering because of this, and not repeating things because of this is because their muscles are not working properly. It's like, oh, of course I'm not going to challenge my squat because I've hurt myself in the past, or it made my back feel like it got pulled or it got tight after, right? Bad experiences. If you exercise and things get all willy wonkas, there's compensation showing up, there's compensatory things and things that feel tight or achy afterwards. This is a sure sign that you need some muscle activation techniques. Maybe you aren't recovering well, right? Like you exercise, it's great, but then it takes me weeks to recover. That's a sign that your muscles can really use a boost and a big turn on so that they are ready to not only work but recover. And then if you feel like you are just don't have the stamina to show up over and over and over again, that is another sign that, hey, your nervous system and your muscle system really need an MAT tune-up, or you need to get on some MAT maintenance to make sure that your muscle system is ready to be worked in a repeated way.
Exactly. Now, the next thing you need to make sure you're doing is prioritizing your consistency of your workouts throughout your week, okay? I'm not saying you need to work out every single day, but if you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this super high-tech program where I only need to work out twice a week, it's like, or the problem with that is if you happen to miss one of those workouts, now all of a sudden you've gone from working out twice a week to working out once a week, and that's a tremendous drop in not only in terms of your frequency, but in terms of like the stimulus that's being applied to your body. We have seen time and time again that clients who do their resistance training a minimum of 3 days a week do substantially better than people who do their resistance training less than that. Okay. And so sometimes this looks like, working with a trainer 1 to 2 times a week and doing, a workout on your own once or twice a week. Sometimes this is, hopping into classes, a few times a week, whatever it is. But have it in your mind that you're going to prioritize getting your workouts in a minimum of 3 times a week. When you're doing that by your workouts, I mean like your strength training workouts, and then have that be a non-negotiable for you. Hey, getting these in no matter what. Twice a week, more times than not, just does not cut it in terms of building results that are sustainable and that last. Because there's too much that can come up to take you from twice a week to once a week, or twice a week to 0 times a week. And that's when people really start to go downhill fast.
Yeah, I even have a handful of clients that come in once a week or even once every other week. And for sure, like a regular conversation that we have is like, this is not enough. And it's fine if I see you once a week or once every other week. But if that is the only time you are challenging your body, it's possible that we maintain if you're younger. But it's definitely not going to progress you because it's just not enough, right? It's like it is totally not enough. It's like taking like I eat one healthy meal once a week and think that I'm going to have like really great, nutritional health. It's impossible, right? The requirements for your body are so much higher than that. So make sure that when you are challenging, you're recovering, and you're repeating the 3 things, it is on some sort of consistent basis, ideally more than twice a week.
And the final thing is that while you are working out, make sure you're prioritizing muscle challenge throughout the workout. Make sure you are prioritizing really leaning into the fatigue that you're feeling during the workout. Don't try to escape it. Don't try to make that part easier. That is the entire reason while you're there. The whole like feeling the burn thing, that's it, right? That's the thing that we're trying to lean into. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but that's also the thing that drives the results. That also is also the thing that drives the increases in strength, that drives the increase in being able to build and maintain muscle, that drives even weight loss, through building and maintaining muscle. So making sure that you are focused on and prioritizing you're challenging your muscles throughout your workouts. And then while you're doing that, making sure you're staying safe by using the 4 Exercise for Life principles with every single workout. We've covered those a lot in podcasts in the past. So if you're not sure of what those are, be sure to scroll back to previous episodes because we do talk about them a lot, but making sure that those are at the forefront of every single exercise that you do while you're focused on challenging your muscles. So if you're finding that you're not getting the results that you're wanting from your workouts, it really boils down to at least one of these 3 things missing. Either you're not challenging your muscles, you are not recovering from the challenge, or you are not repeating the challenge, okay? And so by taking care of those 3 things, those are the 3 steps that must be followed in order for you to get results. And so if you are wanting our guidance in helping you to do that and are willing to be at our studio here in Schaumburg, Illinois, that's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. All you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial muscle activation techniques consultation and assessment. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We truly appreciate your time and attention, your eyeballs on YouTube, your ears on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review of what you thought of today's show, it always means the world to us when you do. Share this with somebody who needs to hear this message, who is feeling like they are not getting the results from their workouts, so they can understand the 3 things that they must do in order to consistently get results from the workouts. That's how this show grows. That's how our message continues to spread, and we always appreciate that when you do it. We are wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.